Welcome into CBS News 24/7. I'm Elizabeth Cook. We are following three big stories happening right now and so much more. Let's take a live look at the White House, where President Trump is meeting with the UK Prime Minister. We'll bring you their comments about Ukraine, with tensions running high ahead of President Volodymyr Zelensky's visit to the White House tomorrow. Plus, investigators are trying to figure out what happened after actor Gene Hackman, his wife and dog were all found dead inside their New Mexico home. And the controversial Tate brothers abruptly arrived to the United States. What we know about their return to Florida, while they both face rape and human trafficking charges in Romania. But right now at the White House, UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer meeting face-to-face with President Trump, a high-stakes sit-down where a number of topics are going to be on the table, including Ukraine and the president's push for NATO nations to pay up for security. Any moment now, we're going to get an inside look into that room, and when we see it, you'll see it. But first, CBS News White House reporter Aaron Navarro is in Washington for us, watching it all, and he joins me now. Aaron, thank you so much for being with us. This visit comes one day before Ukraine's President Zelensky enters those very same doors that Starmer entered just moments ago. What do you anticipate Starmer will have to say to Mr. Trump about Zelensky?
Liz, good to be with you. You're right in that Russia and Ukraine will be big topics in this meeting between Prime Minister Starmer and President Trump. The UK Prime Minister is expected to commit British troops to go to the region in Ukraine in the event that a peace agreement is reached. What he wants from the U.S., though, is to commit their own security guarantees, as well as serve as a sort of backstop to British and French forces that would go to Ukraine again in the event that a peace deal is reached. Again, just looking for more from the U.S., despite President Trump saying that, security guarantees are not going to be made at this moment. But it's notable, too, how Starmer comes to the White House just days after French President Macron came to the White House with a similar ask for more U.S. Security guarantees in Ukraine. There were no guarantees made in that meeting, but we'll see what happens this afternoon.
Yeah, it's interesting, Aaron, because the Prime Minister just announced a surprise boost in UK defense spending by about $17 billion each year. What's the significance behind this big announcement coming right before his visit to D.C.?
Yeah, it's a rise of up to 2.5% of the GDP in the UK for investing in its defense. White House officials said this morning that they were pleased with that increase, but they're still calling on NATO and Europe to do more in terms of investing in their own defense. Up to 5% is what President Trump has asked for. What the move indicates to me is that Prime Minister Starmer, who may be politically different than President Trump, still recognizes the importance of the United States-UK alliance and is adapting to Trump's second term, as he has really called on Europe to do more on defense, as well as reduce any trade deficits economically between the U.S. and Europe.
All right, let's look ahead to tomorrow, Aaron. What are you going to be watching for during this very high-stakes meeting between Zelensky and Trump?
It's expected that President Zelensky will sign some sort of rare earth mineral agreement with the U.S. Rare earth minerals are used for a bunch of technologies, including smartphones. President Trump has called and pushed for the U.S. to have a good amount of stake in that material in Ukraine as a sort of payback for U.S. aid given to Ukraine during President Biden's term. President Zelensky, in return, has asked to be a part of NATO, has asked for security promises from the U.S. to try and deter any attempt by Russia in the event that an agreement is reached to invade Ukraine again. President Trump so far has not indicated he will budge on those issues. So I'm going to be watching to see if President Zelensky will get anything really for Ukraine out of tomorrow's talks. He has talked about an agreement on rare earth minerals being a strong economic link between the U.S. and Ukraine, but security agreement still seems top of mind for the Ukrainian president.
Yeah. All right, CBS News White House reporter Aaron Navarro. Thanks so much, Aaron. All right, meanwhile, in Washington, members of the Doge caucus are at the White House today to meet with special government employee Elon Musk about the Department of Government Efficiency. Meanwhile, House Speaker Mike Johnson is signaling that he might have an announcement about the 2025 budget plan after meeting with President Trump late last night. But that plan doesn't have a lot of support from Democrats. Just over an hour ago, House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries talked about his opposition to this plan. Take a listen.
The Republican budget will set in motion the largest cut to Medicaid in American history. Children will be hurt. Families will be hurt. Seniors will be hurt. Everyday Americans with disabilities will be hurt. Hospitals will be hurt. And nursing homes will be hurt, all across America.
All right, let's bring in CBS News congressional correspondent Nydia Cavazos with the very latest on this. Nydia, great to see you. What are we expecting to hear about this budget this morning, and what is the path forward to get Democratic support? Is there a path forward?
We know that for now the budget plan put forth by House Republicans and Speaker Johnson continues to move forward, but now it's up to both the House and the Senate to reconcile their differences and put together a plan that's going to put forward and put forth and advance President Trump's legislative agenda, which centers around tax cuts. But at the same time, we also know that there's a looming deadline here to avoid a government shutdown, March 14th. And so both Republicans and Democrats have to come together to find a way to continue funding the government so that we avoid a government shutdown. But of course, after everything that happened this week with the budget plan, the chances of having a strong collaboration between both Republicans and Democrats was hindered because the budget plan that was put forth by Republicans also signals that there's going to be cuts coming to Medicaid. And so you have a lot of lawmakers, both Republicans and Democrats, who are saying, they're raising the alarm here, saying they have to go back to their home districts and provide answers and have some sort of reassurance that their constituents won't be drastically affected by these Medicaid cuts coming.
And Nydia, we mentioned earlier the Doge caucus is meeting with Elon Musk today. What do we know about this meeting? What are they going to talk about?
We're still awaiting details as far as what exactly was discussed in these meetings, but we know that the Doge caucus was created to, one, know exactly what is going on with the Doge and on the executive side, but also to further advance President Trump's legislative agenda. And so we know that there's been a lot of back and forth between Elon Musk, Johnson, House Republicans, and a lot of it has also been centered around the backlash with the Medicaid cuts. Republican lawmakers and Democratic lawmakers are also looking for some sort of reassurance that these cuts won't come and that they won't drastically affect their constituents. So we're awaiting more details, but we know that these meetings are going to continue. And it's also important to note that it's both Republicans and Democrats that make up this Doge caucus here on Capitol Hill.
All right, Nydia Cavazos live for us there in Washington. Thank you so much, Nydia. All right, moments ago, controversial influencers Andrew Tate and his brother Tristan touched down in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, after spending the last 2 years detained in Romania for a sexual assault and sex trafficking case. Authorities lifted travel restrictions against the brothers, but it's not clear why. Coming up in the next half hour, we will talk with our partners over at the BBC to go over the unexpected brothers' arrival to the States and why they're in Florida in the first place. To Santa Fe, New Mexico now, where investigators are trying to figure out why actor Gene Hackman died in his home along with his wife and dog. Investigators say Hackman, his wife and dog were all found in different rooms of their Santa Fe, New Mexico home and had apparently been dead for some time. Detectives say there is no indication that they had been shot or suffered any kind of wounds. The utility company is working to test the gas lines in and around the home. And we've been seeing a lot of tributes since the news of his passing. Director Francis Ford Coppola worked with Gene Hackman on the 1974 movie The Conversation. He posted on Instagram in part, quote, "I mourn his loss and celebrate his existence and contribution." To California now, and a step towards possible clemency for the Menendez brothers. Governor Gavin Newsom says he is asking the parole board to gather more information on whether Eric and Lyle Menendez should have a chance at a life outside of prison. The board is expected to give their response within 90 days. Let's take a listen to what the governor had to say today.
To understand their in-custody conduct, what they've done since the offense as it relates to rehabilitation and treatment programs, whether they've contributed to their own rehabilitation.
Now, the brothers are still set to face a resentencing hearing on March 20th and the 21st. They were convicted in 1996 of first-degree murder for killing their parents. The brothers had asked a court to take another look at their case after arguing that new evidence backs their claims that they were sexually abused by their father. And just a few days ago, LA County DA Nathan Hackman said he believes the court should deny the brothers' habeas corpus petition for a new trial. But Hackman said the governor should do his own research and come to his own conclusion about whether he will grant the brothers freedom. Meanwhile, family members supporting the Menendez brothers are set to speak out at a press conference this afternoon. We're expected to hear their response to the DA's comments and the order from Governor Newsom. We'll continue to follow that story and bring you their comments right here on CBS News 24/7. And there are growing questions about the future of the Environmental Protection Agency on everything from potential cuts to key climate policies. So let's bring in Tracy Wolf. She is the senior coordinating producer on climate coverage here at CBS News. Tracy, great to be with you. We've been watching Elon Musk Doge make widespread cuts across federal agencies, many of them, most of them. What kind of impact could we see at the EPA?
Yes, so yesterday during President Trump's first cabinet meeting, he was sitting adjacent to Administrator Lee Zeldin, and he indicated that he would like to see a 65% cut in the people of the environment. That's exactly what he said. When we reached out to the White House to confirm, the White House did say, oh no, he meant 65% in reduction of EPA spending. But whether it's a 65% reduction in workforce or budget, that would be a tremendous impact to the Environmental Protection Agency. And their whole mission is to protect clean air, clean water, and enforce federal laws like the Clean Air and Clean Water Act to make sure that we have a safe and healthy environment.
Yeah, speaking of clean air, in 2009, the EPA identified greenhouse gases as a threat to public health. Now, CBS News asked the agency if we could see a reversal on that. What can you tell us?
Yes. So, as you said, in 2009, there was this thing called the endangerment finding, and that is where the EPA said that greenhouse gases are a threat to public health, and that then gave the agency the ability to regulate greenhouse gas emissions under the Clean Air Act. So in President Trump's first term, there was some talk about trying to review this finding, see if there was a way to revoke it. That didn't end up happening, but on President Trump's first day in office, he signed an executive order where he mandated that the EPA and its soon-to-be administrator, who is now Lee Zeldin, to review that finding and see whether or not it was still legal and applicable. And so according to sources that we spoke to today, the administrator has done that and has reviewed. We do not know what the final outcome of that decision will look like. I would say it does feel like they will maybe attempt to revoke that finding, and that would be pretty detrimental because that really is the whole reason why the federal government has been regulating greenhouse gas emissions in the power sector and the transportation sector as a means to not only address climate change, but also to help public health. So should that finding be revoked, you could see a lot of different regulations fall apart, and the big reason why critics of the finding would be happy to see it go away is because they do believe that it's been quite costly to comply. But there have obviously been some great things in terms of addressing public health and addressing climate change by having that finding stand in place. So we will wait and see what happens.
Yeah, lot to wait and see about with these different cuts. Tracy Wolf, thank you so much. A family excursion turned into a dangerous rescue mission in Southern California. A teenage boy and his family were rock climbing just outside of Joshua Tree National Park on Monday when he fell and got pinned between two large boulders. CBS News correspondent Elise Preston spoke with two members of the fire department that helped save his life.
High above a tower of boulders in Rimrock, California, fire crews backed by drones prepared for a dramatic rescue. It came 6 hours after a 15-year-old boy was rock climbing on Monday when he slipped and plunged 30 feet, landing tightly wedged in between large boulders.
His lungs couldn't even expand, really, to breathe.
That's right, yeah. So that's obviously
Ryan Wonders, a fire paramedic for the San Bernardino Fire Department, and fire captain Aaron Comstock were part of the rescue team. San Bernardino fire crews got a 911 call after the boy's family unsuccessfully tried to free him.
it does add that sense of urgency because we understand that stress his body's already been under.
Within 15 minutes, they made the harrowing rescue.
So we were able to coordinate efforts between firefighter wonders and ourselves, and we basically were able to pull them out all together. He was joking with us and telling us about other times he'd gotten himself into trouble.
Fire officials say upon rescue, the victim was found to be suffering from hypoxia, dehydration, and hypothermia due to prolonged exposure to the elements. The teen was rushed to a hospital.
CBS News correspondent Elise Preston reporting in Southern California. And speaking of Southern California, let's take a live look at Los Angeles, where the Golden State is really living up to its name right now. Potential record high temperatures expected there today. Jess, it's not even spring, and we're already seeing these warmer temperatures down there.
Yeah, from the Bay Area all the way down into Los Angeles, San Diego too. Temperatures are warm this afternoon, but that's only one part of the story. I'm going to turn the page real fast. I want to show you what's happening. High pressure is parked just off into the west coast. And what this is doing for us is a couple things. Of course, it's warming us up, but it's also bringing in some windier conditions for our friends in Southern California, with the Santa Ana winds kicking up once again as we head into this afternoon. Now, the National Weather Service is on top of it, issuing wind advisories. I'll show you that in a second. But that area of high pressure also warms a lot of us up, too, from Vegas down into Los Angeles, right back up into the Bay Area. They're dealing with sunny skies today and warm temperatures well above average for this time of year. It feels more spring-like in a winter-like setup still. Now, the wind advisory stretched from San Diego County all the way to the border of Mexico, stretched up into Los Angeles, or at least close to it. It cusps the Los Angeles basin, and it moves right over to areas close to Malibu and just near Palisades, where that fire burned earlier this year. Now, we keep a close eye on these wind advisories because we can see wind gusts anywhere up to around 45 to 55 miles per hour today, meaning power outages are definitely possible in some of these higher elevated communities, or at least along the foothills. Now, I'm going to stay up north real fast just to show you from Malibu all the way up into the hills just nearby. These are going to be some of the windiest conditions we see into the afternoon hours. That advisory expires at 4 o'clock today, and then we're left with light winds pushing into the next couple of days. Wind gusts today, though, could reach anywhere up to around 45 miles per hour just up along these hills. So we keep a close eye on these conditions because as we kicked it off, of course, they're dealing with sunny skies, warm temperatures today, but the winds are kind of the biggest concern for us when it comes to any sort of concern down there.
Anytime it's dry, hot, and then the wind picks up, there's always that concern for fire danger.
That's true.
All right, Jess, thanks so much. Well, still ahead, we hear from the Florida governor, Ron DeSantis, after the Tate brothers were allowed to return to the United States despite facing rape and human trafficking charges in Romania. What the governor is saying about their arrival. You're watching CBS News 24/7. Welcome back to CBS News 24/7. Baltimore Ravens kicker Justin Tucker made his first public statement on the multiple sexual misconduct allegations against him. He said he was shocked and heartbroken over the claims. A total of 16 massage therapists accused Tucker of exposing himself to them during therapy sessions. He has denied the allegations, calling them untrue. And we continue to follow that measles outbreak going on in Texas. State health officials confirm a child hospitalized with measles who did not have the vaccine has died. It is the first death in this outbreak that began in West Texas in a Mennonite community with very low vaccination rates. The latest numbers from the Texas Health Department put the total case number at 124. People infected across 9 different counties right now. The bulk of those cases, children and teens without the measles vaccination. And we have an update now on the condition of Pope Francis. The Vatican says the Holy Father is continuing to improve, but he's not out of the woods yet. Seth Doan is live at St. Peter's Square with the latest on his condition. Seth, how is the Pope doing? What's the latest update from the Vatican?
Well, as you mentioned, another slight improvement tonight, Liz. This is the third day in a row where we've not heard anything new or particularly alarming. These slight improvements, though, the Vatican tonight saying it is still too early to give a prognosis. More time is needed, and noting that his situation, his medical clinical picture is still quite complex. That's something that they've been saying all along. They keep saying a guarded prognosis. More time is needed. They won't say whether things will go one way or another. They did add one small detail tonight, that he is getting this high-flow oxygen. That's something that we've been hearing in the last several days. But tonight we learned that he's at times using a ventimask, which is one of those masks they had mentioned before. It was the tubes that were used in the nose, and now a mask is also being alternated in administering this. So encouraging news, but with a caution, and that's what we have been hearing. We earlier in the week got the update that that CAT scan that he had was not alarming doctors. They had said it was showing the normal progression of a pulmonary issue, inflammation like he is having. And also, you might remember earlier in the week they had mentioned that early kidney failure, and doctors have been monitoring that and so far have not raised alarm. They say that is not something that they were concerned about. We heard also that the Pope was eating this morning, that he was able to sit up in his chair. We heard in the latest update that he was able to get to the little chapel that's on the 10th floor of his papal suite there, where he is being treated at Gemelli Hospital in Rome. So overall, an encouraging update tonight.
Yeah, and another encouraging update that we've been hearing off and on this week, Seth, is that he's actually been able to carry out some of his duties while he's in the hospital.
Yeah, we saw him. We know he met with Cardinal Parolin, the number 2, the Secretary of State, earlier in the week as they were starting the path towards sainthood for a number of people. The Vatican really has been saying he's been carrying out his work activities on most days, making a point really to show that the church is still moving forward. Every day we get these reports that show the nominations of a different priest or archbishop here or there. These still continue to come out. The church really making an effort to say the business of the church is carrying on under Francis.
Seth Doan, live for us from Rome. Thank you so much, Seth, for that update. Well, coming up, life in Altadena is slowly returning to normal after those devastating wildfires in Southern California. Coming up, we speak to the mail carriers who are going back to their old routes in a neighborhood that is now unrecognizable. You're watching CBS News 24/7. Controversial influencers Andrew Tate and his brother Tristan just touched down in Florida after spending the last 2 years detained in Romania for a sexual assault and sex trafficking case. This is new video of their arrival in Fort Lauderdale after authorities lifted travel restrictions against the brothers. Now, it's not clear under what conditions they were allowed to leave Romania, or their charges haven't been dropped. Our partners at CBS News Miami are following the story for us. Take a listen.
The Tates have dual U.S. British citizenship and have millions of followers online. And to give you some more background, as you might recall, we first reported that they were arrested in late 2022 and formally indicted last year on charges. Officials say they took part in a criminal ring that lured women to Romania, where they were sexually exploited. Andrew Tate was also charged with rape. They deny those allegations. In December, we reported a court ruled that the case couldn't go to trial because of multiple legal and procedural irregularities on the part of prosecutors. The case, however, remained open, and there is still another ongoing investigation against them in Romania. Romania's anti-organized crime agency has released a statement that says prosecutors approved the request to change the travel restrictions on the Tates, but didn't say who made that request. The brothers are still required to appear before authorities when summoned.
All right, let's go to BBC correspondent Nick Thorpe, who is in the capital of Romania. Welcome, Nick. Great to be with you. Have Romanian officials said anything about why they lifted the Tate brothers' travel restrictions? Because the charges have not been dropped.
That's right. The charges are still in place. The prosecutors, there was a rather terse statement from the Romanian prosecutors here this morning. So after the Tates had flown out on that private jet, which has now touched down in Florida, in that statement, they said that the lawyers acting for the Tate brothers had asked for two things. One was for all charges against them to be dropped. That was rejected by prosecutors here in Romania. But the second thing they'd asked, which was to have the right to get back their American passports and travel out of the country, that was granted. So in a nutshell, the situation we're in now is that they're still under what the Romanian law calls judicial control, which means that they're expected to collaborate, to participate with that investigation, and eventually, presumably, to stand trial here in Romania on those very serious charges. But the prosecutors have now allowed them to travel back to the United States.
And can you go over the charges that the Tate brothers are actually facing and why they were in Romania in the first place?
Sure. The Tate brothers first came to Romania, I think it was in 2016. They said then publicly that they felt freer here to do what they liked, to pursue their business. And also part of that business was live online sex chats. And there are allegations against them of, for example, of luring young women to Romania and then coercing them into taking part in making basically online pornography, that this amounts to trafficking. And they're also accused, Andrew Tate is accused also of rape and also of money laundering and forming a criminal organization. So basically all these activities which Andrew Tate felt he was freer to do here, the Romanians turned around, the Romanian authorities turned around and said, no, this is a law-abiding country. We don't want you doing these things here. These are criminal activities here as elsewhere. And that's what launched this sort of more than 2 years of legal actions against them. It was very interesting, Andrew Tate, in that brief exchange with reporters when he touched down, after he touched down in Florida, saying that there's no active indictment against him. You also mentioned here that this legal case, the judge basically returning the indictment to the prosecution and asking them to rewrite it. It's interesting here in Romania that the rights of the defendants are very well developed, whereas the rights of victims of crime are less well developed. And Andrew Tate's Tristan Tate's legal team have been working very carefully on these procedural issues in order to build to this moment now where they've been allowed to leave the country.
And back here in the U.S., where they just arrived, we know the Tate brothers have supported President Trump, and their lawyer now works for the DOJ. Is there any indication that their lawyer had anything to do with the travel restriction being lifted and then coming to Florida?
Clearly, there has been pressure, whatever we call it, from the Trump administration. We know that Richard Grenell, Donald Trump's special envoy, had conversations with the Romanian foreign minister in the corridors of the recent Munich Security Conference and raised the issue of the Tates. We also know there were private contacts. The Financial Times newspaper listed some of the contacts between the US administration and the Romanian government. The Romanian government then denied that this amounted to a demand from the US government, but as a key US ally here in Europe, a key NATO member, Romania clearly did feel under pressure and seem to have given in to the pressure now, notwithstanding the fact, of course, that the Tates say that they hope to be cleared one day by a Romanian court, and they seem to have given some undertaking, though we haven't seen anything in writing, that they will return to Romania when they're requested to do so by the Romanian judges.
Nick Thorpe from the BBC reporting to us live from Romania. Great to see you, Nick. Thank you so much. Well, just a moment ago, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis spoke about the Tate brothers in a press conference. He said they're, quote, not welcome in his state and doesn't know why they're there. Take a listen.
We have no involvement in that. I read about it through the media. Clearly, the federal government has jurisdiction, whether they want to rebuff his entry into the United States, and I have confidence that whether it's Pam Bondi or Kristi Noem, that they will be looking at that. But the reality is no, Florida is not a place where you're welcome with that type of conduct in the air. And I don't know how it came to this. We were not involved. We were not notified. I found out through the media that this was something that was happening.
And from Florida to now Illinois, breaking news. A former Navy sailor has pleaded guilty to plotting an attack on the Naval Station Great Lakes outside of North Chicago there. So let's bring in CBS News Department of Justice reporter Jake Rosen for more on all this. Jake, what do we know?
That's right. So court documents were unsealed today on a case from 2021 in which a former Navy sailor named Xuan Yu Harry Peng, who's 38 years old, He pled guilty in November of 2024 to planning an attack on a naval base in the Great Lakes region of Illinois. We know that he went through enough processes where someone in Colombia who he was talking to about this tipped off the FBI, who then had an agent covertly pose as a member of the Iranian National Guard Quds Force. Pang said that he wanted to get revenge for the killing of Qasem Soleimani, who was that Iranian general killed in the Trump administration. And it went through enough process where the government says that they have pictures that were sent between the FBI agent and Pang of inside the naval base of what he wanted to do, that he had a phone he wanted to use as a detonator for a potential attack, and fake army uniforms to potentially pose as active military members to go on with this attack.
Okay, so Jake, what happens next in this?
Well, he's already pled guilty and he has not been sentenced yet. He's being detained as the proceedings have played out, and he's eligible for up to 20 years in prison. The Department of Justice just unsealed these records, so there's certainly more to come, but they had enough evidence to unseal these today and to go after him 3 years ago. Interesting that the case was kept quiet for as long as it was, but we know with very sensitive cases like this, usually that can be the standard procedure.
All right, Jake Rosen covering this breaking news for us. Thanks so much, Jake. Okay, we're going to go live to a press conference now with Donald Trump. He's meeting with the Prime Minister of the UK, Keir Starmer. Let's go to that now.
And it is my pleasure to bring from His Majesty the King a letter. He sends his best wishes and his regards, of course, but he also asked me to bear this letter and bring it to you. So can I present the letter from the King to you?
Thank you very much. Am I supposed to read it right now?
Yeah, please do.
I will do.
I've got to tell him what your reaction is, so I need to know.
He is a great gentleman. A great, great gentleman. Oh, that's well. Well, that is really nice. I must make sure his signature's on that. Otherwise, it's not quite as meaningful. It is, and that's quite a signature, isn't it? Beautiful. He's a beautiful man, a wonderful man, and we appreciate it. I've gotten to know him very well, actually. First term and now second term. Perhaps you'd like to say what that very important paragraph.
Yes, so this is a letter from His Majesty the King. It's an invitation for a second state visit. This is really special. This has never happened before. This is unprecedented. And I think that just symbolises the strength of the relationship between us. So this is a very special letter. I think the last state visit was a tremendous success.
It was.
His Majesty the King wants to make this even better than that. So this is truly historic, an unprecedented second state visit. He wants to talk that through with you.
And that says at Windsor. That's really something.
Yes. What I haven't got yet is your answer. I do need to.
The answer is yes. On behalf of our wonderful First Lady, Melania, and myself, the answer is yes, and we look forward to being there and honoring the King and honoring really your country. Your country is a fantastic country, and it'll be our honor to be there. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. President. I shall happily take that back to His Majesty.
It's beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to keep that one.
You'll keep that one.
President Trump, Andrew and Tristan Tate landed in Florida today on a private jet after being released from custody in Romania. They are accused rapists, human traffickers, not thought of as good people in many circles. Did your administration pressure the Romanian government to release them, and if so, why?
I know nothing about that. I don't know. You're saying he's on a plane right now?
He's back. They already did.
Yeah, I just know nothing about it. We'll check it out. We'll let you know.
I do. Look, obviously this involves, there's an English element here, so obviously it's important that justice is done, and human trafficking is obviously, to my mind, a security risk. And so we'll catch up with the story in due course.
You're aware? Are you aware? I didn't know anything about it. Yeah.
Mr. President, veterans make up 30% of the federal workforce. Are you tracking how many veterans have been fired so far?
Yes, we are. We are, and we take good care of our veterans, so we're watching that very carefully, and we hope it's going to be as small a number as possible. But we are having great success in slimming down our government. It's been really very successful, and some took payouts and buyouts, and others took other things, and some people we're finding out don't even exist. We're finding that we have a lot of people that don't exist, that people thought that did. We will be making a statement on that, but we're taking care of our veterans. We love our veterans. We're going to take good care of them. Okay, please.
Mr. President, could you be persuaded as part of a peace settlement in Ukraine to provide air cover, a backstop security position to the contributions that Europe might make as well?
Well, so President Zelensky is coming to see me on Friday morning, and we're going to be signing really a very important agreement for both sides because it's really going to get us into that country. We'll be working there. We'll have a lot of people working there. And so in that sense, it's very good. It's a backstop, you could say. I don't think anybody's going to play around if we're there with a lot of workers and having to do with rare earths and other things, which we need for our country. And we appreciate it very much. And I look forward to seeing him. We'll be talking about it, and we'll also be talking about that today with the Prime Minister.
Yeah, I mean, as you know, we've already indicated that we'll play our full part in making sure that any deal, if there is one, and I hope there is, and I think this is a historic moment to make sure it's a lasting deal, and we're about to have a discussion about how we can make that work.
But I have to say this, as I said yesterday, you're talking about a peacekeeping force. We have to make a deal first. Right now, we don't have a deal. We have Russia, we have Ukraine. I think we're very well advanced. I think Russia has been acting very well. We have Representatives Steve Witkoff and Scott and Marco and JD. We're all involved, every one of us, and a lot more. But I think we're very well advanced on a deal, but we have not made a deal yet. So I don't like to talk about peacekeeping until we have a deal. I like to get things done. I don't want to give it the bad luck sign. We don't want to do that. But we've had very good talks with Russia, and we've had very good talks, as you know, with Ukraine. Yes, sir.
Mr. President, does the Prime Minister have to choose a closer relationship with the EU as he is seeking and a good trade relationship with you? Which one would you go for?
Well, I think we have just a great relationship. We actually had a good relationship before. We've met a couple of times, and I'm very impressed with him. I'm very impressed with his wife, I must say. She's a beautiful, great woman. And I second that. I said you're very lucky. He's very lucky. And we've had a very good relationship.
Are you worried about Britain potentially undoing some of the benefits of Brexit by seeking a closer tie with the EU, who you said was set up to screw?
No, I don't worry about that. I thought, frankly, what they did was the right thing at the time, and I think that'll probably prove out over the centuries. You have a long time to go, but I think I predicted that was going to happen, and it did happen. And it'll work itself out. I think it's already worked itself out.
Yes. Mr. President, can I ask on Chagos, Mr. President? Keir-Starmer has signed the deal to give away the Chagos Islands to Mauritius. Will you approve that deal?
Well, we're going to have some discussions about that very soon, and I have a feeling it's going to work out very well. They're talking about a very long-term, powerful lease, a very strong lease, about 140 years, actually. That's a long time. And I think we'll be inclined to go along with your country. Yeah, I think it's sounding. It's a little bit early. We have to be given the details, but it doesn't sound bad. Yeah, please.
Mr. President, you obviously can do business with our Prime Minister Keir Starmer. You said yesterday that the EU was constructed to screw the US when it comes to trade. What can our Prime Minister say to you to persuade you not to impose tariffs on the United Kingdom?
Yeah, did I use the word that you said, that bad word?
I think so.
Well, I think that the EU, I've had problems with the EU because, and we're not talking about, we happen to have a great relationship with you, but we did have, and we do have problems with the EU because they've tariffed us. They do it in the form of a VAT tax, which is about 20%, and many other taxes. They sue our companies. They sued Apple. Got $16 or $17 billion, which was I think, totally a ridiculous decision. And they're suing Google for a lot of money. They're suing a lot of other companies. And we don't like the way they're treating our people now. We don't like the way they're treating our companies. They sell us cars. We don't sell them cars. They don't take our cars. They don't take much of our agriculture. And we have a deficit with them of about $350 billion. So I wouldn't say it's been such a great relationship personally, but other people did because it's politically correct to say that it's been good, but it hasn't been good. And we're going to change that. And we are going to have reciprocal tariffs. We're not going to have tariffs. We're going to have reciprocal. Whatever they charge us, we're going to charge them, which for many years, foolishly, I would have done that, but then all of a sudden we had COVID and we had other things to think about. So it took me a little while to get that on, but we had, in my first 4 years, we had the greatest economy in the history of, I think, the world, but certainly in the history of our country. I think we're going to have that again. But the EU was very, very tough on us from the standpoint of trade. Then you could take it a step further and go into NATO, and that was a very tough situation for us. I mean, that's been a very tough situation because we were paying a disproportionate share, and it wasn't good. So, as you know, they paid hundreds of billions of dollars after I got involved, and they evened it out a little bit, but not very much. And then if you look at the war, we're in for $300 billion plus, and they're in for $100 billion. They get their money back, and now we'll get our money back also. But under Biden, you wouldn't have done that. Biden did a terrible job, I have to say. I hate to say that about somebody that sat here just before me, but he did a terrible, terrible job. That war should have never happened, the war between Russia and Ukraine. Frankly, October 7th should have never happened. Israel, that should have never happened. What happened there should have never. Inflation should have never happened. Afghanistan should have never happened. The way they got out, not getting out, but the way they got out. So, but I can say that as far as we're here for a different reason, we're talking about a very different place. And this is some place that I have investments there. I own Turnberry, I own Aberdeen, and I own a great place called Doonbeg in Ireland. So, you know, I have a great warm spot for your country.
And our trade, obviously, is fair and balanced, and in fact, you've got a bit of a surplus, so we're in a different position there. And obviously, we contributed hugely in relation to Ukraine, and taken together with Europe, there's about 50%
It'll
of what's
work,
gone in.
It'll work. It's going to work.
Thank you. So does that mean there won't be any sanctions on the UK then?
We'll have to take a look. I mean, we're going to have a good discussion today, and we have some very talented people on the other side, and we have some people that probably aren't as talented as them, but they're pretty good. Marco, what do you think? Our people are pretty good. And no, we're going to have a good discussion, and we'll be talking about that.
Mr. President, I just wanted to ask, Mr. Starmer, the Prime Minister has said that he believes that Vladimir Putin would be at risk of invading Ukraine again without a sufficient backstop. Do you think that Vladimir Putin would be likely to invade again in the event of a peace deal?
I don't think so. I think when we have a deal, it's going to be the deal. I don't think if I didn't win the election, I don't think we'd be even talking to Putin right now or anybody else. I think it would just, you know, I don't know if you're looking at the stats, but thousands of people are being killed a week, soldiers mostly, because the towns have been destroyed. But thousands of soldiers. This was a very bad week, by the way. I get the stats.
Terrible numbers.
And you're talking about a human life. Number one, I want to see that. And it doesn't involve American soldiers, but it's Russian and Ukrainian soldiers.
And we are going to continue to follow the developments out of the White House now with President Trump meeting there with Keir Starmer, that bilateral press conference there. A couple of the highlights to remember: that King Charles extended an invitation to President Trump to visit him in the UK. And this is, according to Prime Minister Starmer, unprecedented. And President Trump accepted that invitation. Also, when asked about Andrew and Tristan Tate, the brothers just arriving in Florida from Romania, facing charges for rape and sex trafficking, he said he knew nothing about it. When asked about Ukraine, he said there is no talk about peacekeeping until there is a deal. He's expected to meet with President Zelensky tomorrow at the White House. Stay with us. You're watching us right here, CBS News 24/7.